Hey guys, Kyle K. Edward Smith here. Thank you so much for stopping by. I've got kind of a different video for you today. I want to take a little bit of time and talk about something that's going on behind the scenes. This is something that we started with the release of Something Beautiful. And we've talked about that record for a bit in past videos, and I'll put a link where you can listen to it. But this is my first full-length record, and as I'm starting as a solo singer-songwriter, I wanted to really think through some of the things about, what am I about as an artist? What am I about as a person? And one of the words that kept coming up was community, and supporting other artists, supporting people in the artistic community who need it, whether, they're just starting out and they're learning. I was a music educator for a good long while, and I still teach drums. And so like music education is a huge thing in my world, whether it's just encouraging other songwriters, whether they're starting out or they've been in it for a while, and just sharing the process together and getting together in that way. That's part of what the podcast is about. We've also started, getting together with some other songwriters, and actually now that things are starting to open up, do some like in-person gatherings where you can just share music, and that's been really cool to see. So like this is all kind of what some of these things that I'm about, but I wanted to, set up some things that are very intentional about supporting the artistic community. And so one of the ways that I wanted to do that is both to bring awareness to something that I'm very passionate about, and also, do some practical good, is take a percentage of what I'm bringing in with this particular music project, since it's my solo stuff, and donating that to worthwhile organizations that support public music education. Like I said, I was a music educator for a long time, and part of my story is that I wouldn't be making music today if it wasn't for having access to public music education. My family was not well off. We didn't have a connection to private schools, and we didn't know a lot of musicians. We just, didn't have those connections. We didn't have the funds for private lessons and things like that. And thankfully, our school had a really solid music program that had some very dedicated band directors, and I was able to come up through that. I've talked about that in some other places, both in the podcast and in the blog, and there might be some dorky pictures of me in marching band gear, so you can check that out too if you're interested. But as like I said, I'm starting out as a songwriter. I wanted to recognize the community that helped me get where I am, because my story would be very, very different if I didn't have that type of thing. And I recognize that there are people who don't have access to solid public music education, and that's actually something that is going away. So to kind of help look at it a little bit broader than just my story, at the recent live show we did to celebrate the release of Something Beautiful, I actually asked my sister to give a little bit of a talk. She's a researcher and a professor who actually works in funding for arts stuff, as well as music in general. So music and arts education and how that's funded and kind of the social impact of that is kind of her jam and what she's about. So she can talk a lot more specifically about what that's looking like both in the States and abroad. She's in Ireland right now. And so we're actually going to cut to that clip of her talking. Remember, this is taken from the Something Beautiful live release show. And so some of the context there will be that will be in reference to that. And then we'll come back and kind of wrap things up.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Kayla Rush. I am Kyle's sister, but I am also a social scientist and music education researcher based at Dublin City University. So greetings to everyone from Ireland, where it is nearly midnight. So if I look a little tired, that's why. So what I want to do is just echo what Kyle's saying about public music education and its importance. Obviously, given that we are related, like Kyle, my own musical background came primarily through public schools. Which is increasingly becoming unusual for people who work in the various different types of music. So we're quite unusual in that despite coming up through public school, we're both working in music now, though in very different ways. And like Kyle, without an excellent community supported band program, without a series of very dedicated music educators working in the public school system, my career just doesn't look like it does today. I would not have gone into music. So this is something that I personally find very important, but that I think is also important on a social level as well. What we're seeing increasingly in the past few decades, both in the United States and here in Europe, where I'm currently working, is the privatization of high quality music education. Increasingly, most of the resources for teaching music, especially to children, are moving into the private sector, and public music education programs in public schools are being gutted or destroyed entirely. And this is a problem because what this does is it prices out people like Kyle and myself, whose family was not particularly wealthy and didn't have the resources to access this type of education, and others who don't have the networks, don't have the money, or live in rural areas. Anyone who doesn't have that pipeline into private education is put at risk and becomes less able to access it. And this has a knock-on effect for the music that we listen to every day and that we take part in. Because if the only people who can access music education are those whose parents can pay for it, that means that 10, 20 years down the line, the only people making music are those whose parents can pay for it. And when that happens, the music that we hear ceases to represent the majority of us and the rest of us. And I think that's a problem. I think that music that represents everyone is important and we need to support that. I think, and it sounds like Kyle agrees with me given this project that he's doing, I think that we need to have state-funded, free, fully accessible public music education and the opportunity for anyone, regardless of their family background, regardless of their socioeconomic status, to be able to access music and to view it as something viable to do for the rest of their life, whether as a hobby, whether as a fan, whether as an artist, or whether as someone working in the industry. And this is why I think it's wonderful that Kyle is making this commitment to support public music education with the funds he makes from this project. I know that the charity he's supporting right now is called Music for All, which is a fantastic program that does work in public schools. They've been doing wonderful work during the pandemic in terms of resources for teachers, in terms of online performance opportunities, and in terms of advocacy. I know with the pandemic in states levels, we're looking at a funding shortfall, and it's very likely this is going to come out of arts programs because that's where it usually comes out of. And Music for All is doing wonderful advocacy work there, as well as making practical resources available to educators. So I will join Kyle's voice in calling for you to support them, both by buying Kyle's merchandise, his music, but you can also donate to them directly as well. So please support public school music education wherever you see it in your own communities. Support the children around you who are learning this way because this is a very important thing for them. And of course, support the launch of Something Beautiful. And thank you very much for listening to me. I think they've done the instrument changeover. I will hand back to K. Edward Smith and Company.
So like I said, this is something, very important to me. And as you heard from Kayla, this is something that's a part of our story. And I think that recognizing it and talking about it and bringing a light to the fact that there are other people who are in situations similar or worse off than we were, and just in general need music education. And I think that that's something that we can all get behind. So we'll put a link to the charity that we're currently supporting, which is Music for All. Music for All, like Kayla said, is doing some really good work, especially this is still in kind of COVID times. It's really weird for performances and resources and advocacy. And as we get past that, it's going to be very important to still have some really solid advocates for public music education. And so they're going to be very important in them. So we're going to be taking 20% of everything we bring in and donating to them. I'll put a link to Music for All. Check out some of the awesome stuff that we're doing. Fun fact, my sister and I actually performed in some of their shows way back in the day. They've been doing this for a long time, and they do really good work. So thank you guys so much for checking this out. I know it's a little bit different, and it's, can sometimes be a little bit heavy, but this is something positive. We're helping out young artists, and that's something that's very important to me as a person and as an artist, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.